American Art Forum. It is a forum for the exploration of the visual arts, where prominent art critics, scholars, artists, and curators show what is intrinsically American in American art, presenting controversial viewpoints, probing to discover the inner stories and secrets of the art community. From tradition to innovation, from colonial to contemporary, art historian Richard Love and his guests bring you the world of art on American Art Forum.
Hello, I'm Richard Love, and this is American Art Forum. Our subject today is performance art, and although our guests don't like that label, they would rather be called medicine men, perhaps, sociologists, information disseminators, or even rheologists, scientists who deal with the deformation and flow of matter. Collectively, my guests are known as Blue Man, a group born in Central Park in 1988 as a group of blue mourners announcing the premature death and providing a ceremonial burial of the decade. We'll follow this human composite known as the Blue Man through our landscape as he gets snagged on certain aspects of our culture. 1/3 of the Blue Man is Chris Wink. Another third is Matt Goldman. And last and certainly not least is Phil Stanton. Gentlemen, how was it that Blue Man got started? Tell me quickly. How did it happen? Did you fellows plan this complicated system of performance art?
It happened when we got together mainly out of dissatisfaction with a stagnant situation in New York where we lived all together. And we felt that things that were happening that we could go see weren't expressing what we wanted to express. And I think we just took the matter in our own hands.
What you didn't see. Now, are you talking about art museums, art galleries, or
the whole
theater?
thing, the whole thing. We were going out everywhere, just looking for something that spoke to the issues that we had within us. And
even the social life and alternatives, the club scene,
everything.
All of that, it just didn't make it, and we weren't prepared to sit there and just complain about it.
And it started out as just a group to talk about these things and talk about what we felt strongly about and how things we felt should change, maybe. And
so like the old cafe scene in 19th century France, you said, hey, we got to do something about it.
Exactly, and you can't do the cafe scene in New York because of gentrification and everything, you know. You can't go to a cafe and order coffee. They want the table to turn over.
Exactly, but what about you guys? Now, you haven't made any huge bucks yet, so something has to flip around here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if we wanted to make bucks, the last thing we would have done is go into performance art. I mean, that's not why we're doing it. We're really... God, how many people say that? But we're really excited about this. We got together and said, you know, let's do something, and we're doing it. And come hell or high water, we have to kick and scrape for whatever we, you know, can get, and we do it.
Gentlemen, I don't see anything wrong with being motivated by idealistic directions. If indeed you were not, you would be one of the crew, which is part of this so-called postmodern syndrome, which is difficult enough to deal with in and of itself. Now, when you try to talk about it, it gets real complicated. Here's why I think you're different, because of this quote, which I think kind of typifies what you're about, even though I alluded to it in the introduction. Yeah, and I do quote you here. The Blue Man is a character who wanders through our landscape and is kind of naive. He gets snagged on certain aspects of our culture, aspects like Captain Crunch. My question is, why is it necessary to find these little idiosyncratic places in American society, ones which touch on your lives and even those around you. Why is it necessary to grasp those, capsulate them, and say so? Could Blue Man exist if you didn't do that? Is there any other way to make it work?
I don't know, why do we do it? I think maybe...
I mean, is that intrinsic, Phil?
Well, yeah, I think because people are asleep a lot. Maybe they need somebody to come along and take a closer look at the fact that we have people who create things to crunch so that it can be marketed. Or,
I think it's intrinsic because it's part of our initial fuel where we wanted to wake ourselves up. There's something very isolating and insulating about everyone being in their own cubicle in Manhattan watching their VCR. There's something that's lost there. There's something, what happens to a culture when it's stripped of its rituals? And so those questions aren't easy to answer, but the answers, we think, may lie in the little mundane things of everyday life, and by having a different character, we're able to go in with fresh eyes.
Isn't that a bit neo-Dada? Aren't you really looking...
You sound like that's an insult.
No. No. As a matter of fact, it's kind of a good thing because after Marcel Duchamp and all the boys did their thing, it kind of...
Took things up a little bit.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, the Dadaists it sounded like they had a great time.
But aren't you in that direction just a smidge?
I don't think we ever started out consciously to do that, but I think that's what we're doing.
One of the things that we also got us to this point is the whole thing between creation and consumption, and that we're in a very consumptive mode in our society right now, and we wanted to create. And Blue Man creates. He takes something that's normally consumption, the Captain Crunch, and he doesn't eat it because it crunches. He plays it because it's an instrument. It's a musical instrument.
And it really relates with what we see, both on this tube that we're on now, and in grocery stores, and I mean, absolutely, we have a captive audience at a very large audience.
Because Robert Longo said in some brochure somewhere that he's a product of the media generation. He says, "You created me, now deal with me."
Yeah, and I think he's right. I think one of the problems is how does one deal with an artist or an art group such as yourself who creates these things? We're not sure, I think, as viewers, as the consumer, as it were, of this kind of art, whether we're ready to throw away tradition and say, oh, we must put our hands behind our back, look at a canvas up on a museum wall. Can we accept what Blue Man does? It can be a problem for purists who believe that that is the only kind of art.
Good.
Would you just as soon burn up all the museums, or you know, I'm not trying to say that you're an anarchist. I'm saying that many people during conceptualism thought that was a good idea. Is there any of that in your attitude? Should everything change?
I'm personally not suggesting that everything change. I just want to sort of offer an alternative or go in a direction that we sort of see hasn't been blazed yet.
We're looking for places on the cultural canvas that haven't been painted yet. But I think there's a rattling the tree a little bit, try to shake something out of it. And but I mean, in this time, it's not clear where to draw the battle lines. It used to be easy to say, all right, anti-this, anti-men, anti-establishment, anti-conservatives, da-da-da. But now it's not so easy. So you can't just go in with a big tomahawk. You have to be more subtle. And you know, we are just as much a part and have to work within this system, you know, anyway.
Let's look at Drums, which is a clip that we're going to roll in of your work and see how our audience likes it.
Oh, great.
Most people take canvases, put them on easels, you know, and paint them. What is necessary to really understand the art? Now, we the viewers see that, and so the tape becomes an intrinsic part of the art happening. It is there. We couldn't understand or care about that canvas or those canvases without it.
It's like what Yves Klein once said, his paintings were the ashes of his art. So are ours. They're remnants, snapshots of an event that took place. And so it's referring back. The art exists in that time only, and then it disappears. It's ephemeral.
So how permanent is it, and how much do we care about that little object, which is a stretched canvas.
Well, one thing that is clear to us is that our art is not simply the 45 or 55 minutes that we're performing. It's not the canvases that end up at the end. The art, for us, Blue Man is a lifestyle for us. It's a way of thinking. It's a whole approach.
There's kind of an unwritten, and we don't have any 16 points of doctrine or anything like that, but there's kind of a philosophy that we've developed. I don't even know if we could put it into words, but it's a question will come up and we'll say, no, that's not Blue Man, and this is. And I think what it turns out to be is in some way just simply human, stripped of maybe all of the modern cultural snags.
But he's asking about the canvas, though. What do they care about the canvas afterwards?
Well, it's true, but now that Phil brings this up, I got to ask about something else. What about style? Is that not style? That which you just described? No, this is not Blue Man. Wait, no, this is. I like this because it's indicative of what our style has provided as a result of our own innovation, which just kind of evolved. Is it style? Does Blue Man have a style as opposed to other performance artists?
I mean, it's hard for us to answer that question. We just go and create the stuff, and someone else can decide if it's a Blue Man style. But yeah, but we have our own little guidelines. I mean,
we play with colors, and we decide if that looks right or that doesn't look right.
I think we're just trying to get this kind of passionate explosion of swirls of color and oohs and outs, and if that's our style, then I guess
most people don't come away immediately with some kind of concept from us. They get some kind of visceral experience. They feel like they'd like to be up there playing with the paint.
If you didn't have something which became a piece of art later, would Blue Man do it? So much time, you end up with something, an object.
Right. It's interesting. Is the object even necessary?
Yeah.
And I think what's happening here is that we must be in a transitional phase, and that's what it's about. It's about the paint on the canvas walking off out into the audience. I don't think it's all the way there yet.
Yeah, but I don't know either. If I were, I wouldn't be doing this job. But I'll say this much. It looks like it might head in that direction. And to prove something, you brought up a word which we've got to use here. I love it. You want to repeat it for me?
Rheology?
Ooze.
Ooze. Yeah.
There's a lot of ooze. And the next clip we're going to show proves that. So let's watch it. How much do you want the audience to laugh? Is pure comedy something which is a very important part of your of the oeuvre, so to speak? How much?
Well, comedy, if it's just for the sake of a laugh, is not something we're interested in. That would be stand-up comedy. But using comedy, using contrast or exaggerations to get another point across is very useful. I think Chaplin used to do that a lot.
Sure, and it becomes almost satirical, does it not?
Well, it's actually ironic because in some pieces we're using exaggeration, and yet we're working in such a narrow spectrum. Blue Man is so staid and has so little expression that we try to take that narrow spectrum and work and make it huge. So that contrast between that narrow and the exaggeration is one of the things that can make it very, very funny.
How many places, I'm going to get back to the ordinary side of your work, how many places have you shown your art? 2,
You know,
20,
it's been a lot. We
200?
don't know the number. It would be around in the teens, I guess, or something like that. And it's interesting because there isn't a place that's set up just for that. What we do is we'll go to a gallery space, and then we'll go to a theatrical space. And there's places, you know, for performance, but they're in the more of the theatrical tradition. And they want different things. You know, at the gallery, they'll say, well, yes, we like the chaos of it. They do. Sometimes there's a chaos exhibit, or they like the canvas part. But at the theater, they go, give us the laughs, you know,
Sure.
keep the people going. So they have kind of different needs, and we're somewhere in the middle.
And do invitations go out, and then the gallery audience comes, the theater audience comes, is that right?
You know, just send the word out somehow.
How do you get paid? You ever get paid?
We haven't made a cent yet.
No,
We've gotten grants.
What about grants? Where do they come from?
Well, we've got some money from the Jerome grant. We get gotten money from the NEA. We have.
Well, we haven't. We
Well,
only got
we
money
have-
from. Let's just. I only contradict you because I don't want to get any tax men out.
Right.
we're applying for
Right,
grants
right.
now.
Well,
Actively
but in
working
any
on it.
case, grant writing is a significant part of how
Right.
you keep your art going. Is that right?
Mhm.
And you all live in New York?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somewhere nearby or
Yeah.
in the same place?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you imagine that your art could get exported somewhere? I mean,
You mean the objects that are left behind, or the
no, you
performance?
yourself. You yourself and what you do. Each night we'll say that you do this.
Well, we're going to go to Glasgow and Belgium.
Why?
Okay.
Have you been invited there?
As part of as part of the PS-122's field trips, they have 3 or 4.
PS-122 is a performance space.
Right, right. And it was a good thing. You got a nice little piece in Interview magazine once, didn't you? Well, let's take a look at slingshot art. I think that would give our viewers an idea of what slingshot art is all about. Here you develop an actual imagery in and of itself. I mean, it is not. We're not just viewers standing back and partaking of some kind of special performance. I mean, it's quite an image connection here.
Yeah.
Oh, who sets up these ideas? Did you all do it together, or who's the thinker behind who's the concept man, or all three of you?
I think that's mostly Chris. Chris comes up with a lot of visual ideas. I think what appears on stage, what makes it to the stage, is a real collaboration.
It was definitely a collaboration. We have, I mean, I'll come up with maybe some crazy idea, but the character and the style and the feel of the whole thing and the execution of it is entirely collaborative.
Let's say you come up with a kind of a script, for want of a much better word. Forgive me for using that word. And Matt says, oh, I don't like that at all, Chris, or I don't like that, Phil. I want to change it. Do you ever have problems getting this thing worked out between you?
Well, we'll just work it out until we'll be very, very just go after it until we're all pretty much agree.
It's something that we're all happy with. It
Yeah.
always works out.
It's great because that's part of the whole thing. It's a relationship and collaboration that distinguishes this from, you know, someone who's just, you know, I don't know, Robert Longo and his staff. I mean, we are working as a team, as a tribe, really.
You get along well, your friends?
Yeah.
Very well.
And now what happens when he gets married and runs off to Tahiti? The group breaks up, and you bring in can Blue Man substitute other people, or?
I'll be doing some performances in Tahiti.
That's great if you get along that well together. Let's take a look at Jello mold. It's not a very long clip, but we want to see it.
I'll tell you, it's a huge Jello mold that we get from the caterer that we work for. They're very nice to make it for us. They get it in bulk Jello.
How do you get that poor guy inside the...
That's what everyone asks us. Yeah, we have a little hole in there.
Don't tell.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
No,
secret.
you have a little hole in there?
And snorkel. No, it works out.
But how does he breathe?
That's what they always
That's
ask.
the
That's what-
question that everyone wants to know. That is the main question.
I hope you don't beat him bloody. He looks like you get pretty carried
They
away
say
with it.
it's very pleasant inside there.
Yeah.
They
Well, I've
actually-
been inside it.
Have you?
I
Inside the
tested it
Jello.
one time.
So you haven't
Yeah,
been
it was
beaten
awesome.
on with.
Oh, no, you're right.
Of all of the ones, now we have another one to show, but of all of the ones, at least thus far, is there one that seems to be more favorite amongst the viewers than any others? Or
You know, that's an interesting question because a lot of people have really varied answers, I think.
Speaks to people in different ways. I hear a lot about somehow the drum painting gets to people on a real primal level. By that time, they're not thinking really too intellectually or cerebrally. It gets them right down to some kind of, just explosion of color in a primal way.
however naive you all may be in putting this together, your intent comes off with a great deal of intellectual prowess. I mean, you show that you're thinking very carefully about these things. I mean, you are academicians in that sense of the word, and yet your art comes off with a purposeful naivete. If that's the case, do you feel that this could go on for a long time, or will your art evolve to another stage, another place? Will it change away from this naivete?
I have no idea.
No inklings, no feelings.
Yes and no.
We want it to stay around for a long time, and we want it to evolve.
In this
also.
form, right. Of course you want it to stay.
I tell you, I think the naiveness is crucial. That the more you dive into an idea of fractal geometry, the more we have to be childlike. That's the way we feel. The more we have to keep umbilical to that which a 9-year-old can understand, so that it's a package.
I think that of that as subject and content, as opposed to style. I mean, you may take the most sophisticated subject and throw it out the window, and yet take the most elementary idea, something with kids in school or a businessman or whatever, and treat it in a style which may be far different from what it might have been a year ago. And I'm just trying to get a feeling if you think that your style is evolving along with your subject.
There's an area that it is evolving. We're more interested in using the electronic signs now as theater. Jenny Holzer uses them as art objects. We're interested in them as theater and creating the actual experience of information overload. You only have time to read one sign, and there's 3.
But
it's a whole area of our future exploration.
But of course, Jenny Holzer forces you to conjure up images without human beings. You immediately inject the dynamics of a human being.
And not only that, but we're less concerned with the exact content and the words coming across. They're coming across very fast. We're more concerned with the way it's coming across, the way they interact with one another, and most importantly, that people can't read them all. They can't read them all. It's very, very much like the information landscape that we're in right now, where we can't take in all the information that's being thrown at us.
And also, it forces the viewer to imagine a little bit. He has to come up with some ideas of his own. I did a show on political cartooning, and many cartoons have no caption. You have to figure it out, and it has an impact which is far greater than something with all kinds of complicated captions.
And that's the participatory part of it.
Indeed, and if it doesn't come off that way, then it ain't working, right? Exactly. Well, we have another one we want to look at. It's called grooming, and so we're going to show our viewers that. Let's watch. How do you get those things on your heads? I mean, where'd you get them? Did you make them? Are they molded from your face?
They're actually made produced for theater purposes.
Well, I don't know if we want to give away all our secrets. We've literally spent a half a year just trying to figure out how to get that together. We were determined to get this one look, and it took us a long time to figure it out.
Blue Man, collectively, happens to be 3 men doing something. Now,
3 things, people, not necessarily male.
Could they be female?
Yeah,
So long as
it's yeah, it's
Every
a
person,
non-incident,
there's no
asexual.
sex, there's no race. It's just a very generic type of image.
Every man.
And that's American, isn't it? I mean, supposedly we
Right.
should be that here in America.
Right. Well, the first performance art piece in America was the Boston Tea Party. You know, we were founded on performance art.
Yeah.
People dressed as Indians and did something symbolic to express something. So
And
those are our very roots.
and you can't get away without a lot of symbolism. I mean, we've been implying that the whole show here. But for you, symbols become very, very obvious. Sometimes on the commercial side, sometimes otherwise. What about anything deeply philosophic or religious or political? Do you ever go in that direction?
Nothing religious or political. But,
I think we want to get people to the idea. The only thing we have, it's propaganda for the idea of bring creativity into your life, and
Right.
creativity is art, and then we'll let them figure out the politics from there.
What about your art background? Creativity, quickly.
I worked as a drummer and art history in college, and but I came to this through music, and I found that a dead end for me in terms of wanting to get something across.
Phil, you're from Savannah, Georgia. How about
Right.
you?
Well,
Your background, art background.
I studied as an actor in a biblical studies major with kind of a philosophy.
Where's the visual arts, guys? Come on, man. You tell me. You
No.
studied painting.
No, I didn't.
Uh-uh.
Blue Man's brought life as art for me, art in the business world, art in performance, just like canvas and clay.
Well, I think you're all being exceedingly creative, and I appreciate the time you spent with me here on the American Art Forum. I hope it helps.
Thank you.
And I thank you for having watched American Art Forum again this week, but we'll return again next week. New subjects, new topics. Till then, I'm Richard Love. So long.